Fairy tales. Tales as old as time, universal stories. We all know them, and we love them. And lately, these fairy tales have become the primary cash cow for Disney and all the movies they have been making recently, primarily the live-action versions. But with all these live-action remakes and the soon-to-be-released Little Mermaid, this all begs the question of what actually makes a good live-action Disney animated movie. To answer this question, I think we need to look at my favorite Disney live-action movie, the 2016 Cinderella. The only movie which, in my opinion, improves upon the source material and gives something new to the story while still preserving the original heart of the fairy tale. I've compiled a list of 4 reasons why I think this movie succeeded where so many others failed. So if that interests you, let's get into the 4 reasons why I think the Disney live-action Cinderella was the best of the Disney live-action movies and should be the blueprint for the ones coming soon. First criticism that a lot of people have for live-action Disney movies is that they do away with the music that so many of the originals were renowned for. And while it was definitely sad to see beautiful songs such as Reflection and Mulan go by the wayside in the live-action version, I believe that in Cinderella's version, getting rid of the music was a good idea. And I think getting rid of the music works for one primary reason. It is that they exchanged the music for a message that creates a through line throughout the story that the music would have created otherwise in the original animated version. So first, let's talk about actually getting rid of the songs. What does this make the film lose as a movie? I personally believe in Cinderella, the reason why it worked so much is that the songs in the original Cinderella movie didn't provide too much insight into the characters, while sometimes they did, for example, like what they want specifically. It didn't have as much depth as, for example, like I said, Reflection in Mulan, where it was talking very deeply about the character and helped us to get to know her. And in Cinderella, I believe the music is a bit more surface level, and that was why it was so easy to get rid of it and replace it with this message. But what is the message that I'm talking about? Well, they mention it quite quickly in the first bits of the movie, and it is the advice that Ella's mother gives to Ella, which is have courage and be kind. The reason why I believe that this kind of message and through line, have courage and be kind, serves so well to replace all the music in the movie is because I believe it gives us as much insight into Ella's character, if not more, than the music would have given, and I think it works primarily because this is something that not only Ella, but Kit identify with, and it helps to create a through line through the characters and a theme overall of the movie. When talking about how the message worked and exchanging it for the music, I mentioned Ella and Kit's relationship, and I think that this is the second strong point of the film, the romance. I believe that this live-action version does so much better to develop the romance than the original, and this is what I mean by improves upon the source material. In the original Cinderella, the prince, correct me if I'm wrong, had a good 3 lines, and it was kind of funny because I remember people at the time would make fun of him for kind of being like an NPC and just standing there and not really doing much of anything, at least in the first movie. However, in Cinderella 2016, this is completely different. Some people criticize Ella and Kit's insta-love in the movie. However, I think it works, and I'll tell you why. This ties back into the message of having courage and being kind. When Ella and Kit first meet, one of the first things Ella says to him is that we must always have courage and be kind once they're talking about their situations. And I believe, you can kind of see it on Kit's face also in the scene, that this shows how they're connecting because he sees in her something he very much believes in themselves, which is also the through line of the movie, have courage and be kind. And you can further see that Kit recognizes this when he talks to his father about Ella. He says, she's not just a pretty girl, and then his father's like, what do you mean? And he says her goodness. And you can tell by this first interaction, although brief, that they hold much of the same values, which I think makes the love a lot more relatable. You can tell that he deeply relates to her and respects the fact that she has been able to say, they treat me as well as they're able, which is interesting phrasing because when she mentions that she's treated as well as she can be, she's still giving her stepmother and stepsisters grace, even when they have been the ones perpetrating her unhappiness for so long. Because of these tiny inclusions, tweaks in dialogue, and both characters relating very deeply to the same message of the film, I believe that the romance aspect in this version of Cinderella is much stronger, personally, than the animated version, or even some of the other live actions that are similar. Now, going along with the theme of why the romance works so well in this movie, my third reason for why I believe this is kind of the prime example of a good live-action film, especially a fairy tale one, is the dialogue and how they develop the characters throughout the movie. This is apparent not only with Kit and Ella, but with other characters. namely Ella's family, the stepmother, and even Ella herself. This development can be seen from the very beginning of the film, where it shows Ella's bond with her family, and I think the film does a really nice job of introducing how close her family is and showing them before her mother and father end up ultimately dying. This was something that the animated movie, from my memory, notably lacked. They showed her being sad, but they didn't show exactly what she lost with her family, and I think the kind of bond they were able to establish within the opening first minutes of the movie is really important for setting up Ella's character arc throughout the rest of the movie. And this is, again, what I mean by that the film improves upon its source material. The animated one was notably lacking the backstory, and the live-action one managed to fit a bit more backstory in to create a more cohesive character and just kind of purpose and motivation for Ella, because we saw what she lost, so we knew therefore what she was lacking, and ultimately what she was looking for was that family again. And as I mentioned, I think Ella herself as a character is so much more well developed in this movie. You see her undying struggle to be good. However, you also see raw scenes of her, for example, the scene in the kitchen when she drops the plates after her stepmother and stepsisters are being like very abusive towards her. You see her crack, and it's very real and it's very human, because as good as you are and as good as Ella is, you can't be perfect 100% of the time. So scenes like that help to develop Ella's character a lot more through the movie. You see her struggle to be good and keep her word, but also at times like that she just breaks down, and I think that definitely shows a lot more raw human emotion than the animated one, and especially since you have the context of her family and how much she lost, it gives you a lot more insight into her personal struggles and just makes the film a lot more heartfelt, in my opinion. The other character that I mentioned that I think this film did a really good job of personifying was the stepmother. I think that the stepmother, although some people say her kind of excuse was a little bit like it didn't fully match up in the end, but I think it was a very like raw and well written scene, because she mentions that she too has lost a lot and she's grown to be very old and bitter, and when Ella asks her why, she gives this very fickle reason of because Ella's young and beautiful and good, but you can see that she's very deeply jealous of her, and I think that through dialogue like that and interactions between the two characters, you can see that not only does the stepmother resent Ella because she represents the happy family that she has also lost. The stepmother lost a loving husband, and her daughters don't exactly get along as well, but she's also jealous of the relationship she had with her family and how she's able to miss her parents because she had such a good relationship with them. And this is contrary to Lady Tremaine and her daughter's relationships, where she doesn't necessarily respect them. You can kind of see she knows they're a bit dull, and she tries to love them anyway, but she's very clearly missing the raw relationship that Ella and her parents had, and you can see the jealousy in her character and kind of how Ella represents not only everything she's lost, but everything she could have had if she had a perfect family. The fourth reason I believe why Cinderella was such a success is I believe the production knew exactly what liberties to take and where to hold back. Primarily, in my mind, this applies to the CGI especially, and a bit of the costuming. I think that the CGI in this movie was very well used. There was only a few actually like CGI'd characters. For example, I believe the mice were the very standout ones, and then the CGI was also used very practically in the transitions when she goes to the ball. I believe that the CGI was used well in this movie, especially practically, because in scenes like the ball scene where she changes into her dress, they obviously need some kind of effect, CGI, of course, to make the transformation look real and realistic. But this also ties in with the costuming. Her dress is beautiful and ornate enough on its own to be real, and it doesn't need a whole ton of CGI to make it look beautiful and elegant, and it provides just the right amount of magic for the transition, but the movie also has enough structural integrity in its costuming and its other elements that it can stand on its own without the CGI, and the CGI is only there to enhance bits of the movie that need it. And all of that ultimately brings me to the opinion that the 2016 Cinderella was the best Disney live-action remake that we have seen yet. Please feel free to share your thoughts down in the comments down below, and if you liked this video, please consider subscribing. I talk about books, movies, and other things on my channel. Usually books, however, I would really appreciate it if you stuck around. I just really love this movie, and I love talking about things that kind of make me happy. Also, the dress, I couldn't really find a big mention for that within the whole overarching themes of why I thought it was so good, but I would literally kill for the Cinderella dress, and I love the movie very much. So I hope you liked the video, and I will see you guys next week. Bye!